Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we have to talk about Apple, maker of the iPhone, Mac, etc., because according to a new lawsuit, Apple has been lying to us about privacy. Now, this is something actually I've talked about for years, that Apple has clearly overstated in their marketing, that essentially that they claim privacy that they don't. But we have more details now thanks to Hollywood Reporter, of all places, that had a really good and concise write-up on this. And so I'm going to be cribbing from them heavily. But here's what's going on, because Apple is being taken to court over allegations that its lies to consumers about privacy measures to gain an edge on competitors while actually harvesting massive amounts of data to grow advertising revenue is pretty much the name of the game. Now, despite representations in a campaign touting its privacy features, Apple continues to collect user data and, quote, facilitates interception by third parties, end quote, according to a pair of prospective class actions filed against the company yesterday on Thursday. Now, one of the suits accuses Apple of implementing the privacy features to, quote, protect its own ad revenue at the expense of other competitors, such as Facebook, end quote. Apple in 2021, if you recall, unveiled privacy changes that require apps to obtain user permission to track their activity across other apps. The company assures users that apps, quote, can't access the System Advertising Identifier, or IDFA, and can't collect information that identifies you or your device, like your email address, end quote. Now, the feature, called App Tracking Transparency, has drastically impacted the ad industry since its release. During a quarterly earnings report this past Wednesday, Facebook's parent company Meta said the change to Apple's iOS operating system, that's the operating system that runs iPhone, cost the company $10 billion in 2022, meaning it's costing Facebook, aka Meta, $10 billion. And believe me, I'm not losing any tears over that. Alphabet, the parent of Google and Twitter, have also seen similar but not as drastic revenue declines, partially attributable to this update, meaning if you have the choice to say, do I want to be tracked or not tracked, or opt in or opt out to advertising, people choose typically the privacy route and say, opt me out, I don't want this. But the complaint filed in California, in New York, the two complaints claim a breach of implied contract, invasion of privacy, and unjust enrichment. The suit filed in California also claims unfair competition. Now, in a statement to the Hollywood Reporter, Apple itself said, quote, identifiable information is never shared with third parties and is not used to track users across apps and websites. All data used for advertising purposes is disassociated from personal identifiers, and Apple advertising operates on the basis of de-identified data, end quote. Now, the suit also accuses Apple of deceiving users into believing that their data is protected by turning off the, quote, allow apps to request to track, end quote, when it actually collects and exploits data, and including browsing history, communications, and personal identifiers, meaning you're turning this off, but you're still getting data mined in all those ways. It also points to a statement from CEO Tim Cook of Apple saying, quote, privacy is a fundamental right, and we build it into all products and services at Apple. You should be in control of your data, not the highest bidder. Also, an Apple ad states, quote, it's your data. iPhone helps you keep it that way. Now, according to the complaint, and as it reads, and I quote, Apple knows that such assurances and promises regarding consumer privacy and disabling or termination of such tracking and interception are false and misleading, end quote. Now, on top of this, the plaintiffs also point out basically a study from security researchers at software company Mysk that allegedly found Apple's privacy settings did not stop the company from collecting data. I've done videos and podcasts on that, also talked about that on my radio show. The App Store, for example, continued to harvest information about real-time activity from users on the app, in addition to ID numbers, what kind of device was used, the device's screen resolution, the device's keyboard language, and how the user was connected to the internet. That is also known as fingerprinting, meaning they don't necessarily have to have your name, but they can link you, your accounts, and everything to essentially the specific configurations, mannerisms, habits, locations, all that kind of stuff, and not to mention the unique identifiers in these phones to you, and therefore you can be re-identified if they're attempting to de-identify you. Now, it also concluded among other things, that the stock apps tracked users' list of watch stocked. I talked about that as well. The names of stock viewed and searched for, as well as new articles users saw. The researchers also said that similar data on Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Books, among other apps, are still collecting data. Again, I've spoken about this, extensively, but it goes deeper than just this. Apple has consistently for decades had essentially this culture in marketing that says, well, if you have an Apple, X cannot happen to you because they're that good, they're that unique, etc. You can go back 20 plus years and you can literally see, advertisements. Oh, you'll never get a infection if you have an Apple. There's even the whole Justin Long, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, Justin Long, John Hodgman. And there's literally one where Justin Long, because, the PC is John Hodgman, who is sick and all of that, basically says, well, I'm an Apple, and if you're using me, you're never going to get infected. That's an utter lie. And so we've seen these things before as well. Apple put a huge billboard out in Las Vegas. I believe it was in front of CES around 2016, 2017 that said what stays on your iPhone, or what goes on in your iPhone stays in your iPhone, something to that effect. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. They have been fostering this perception that they are essentially above data mining and privacy or privacy attacks because they're that good, they're that private, etc., when quite frankly, they are not. And the most recent one that I can think of is the recent privacy scores that they give the App Store. It looks like that little box top with the nutrition label and all of that. They touted this as this, oh my God, this is going to be huge. You can literally go and look at the app and it will give you a score of how good they are at privacy or how bad they are at privacy and all of that. The problem that they didn't tell you was that is on your honor from the developer, meaning if I'm developing an app, I get to fill out that little nutrition label on privacy, and so I can be the worst data miner or whatever, giving all of your information to the Russians, and I can mark myself as perfectly private and secure because it's on your honor from Apple. So this whole perception that Apple has had for literally decades on how good, how private, etc., I think is total BS. Now it's going to be proven in court, and I think there's going to be a lot of people attaching this class action because while you might like Apple, it might be the hippest device, you might think you're above and beyond the data miners of Google and Facebook and all of that. They're doing the same damn thing. And so I think that's important to understand because as those companies' ad revenues go down due to Apple's changes, Apple's ad revenue is going up. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, where just like Apple, you will be data mined. Same with YouTube as well, Google owned. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. And if you're on an Apple device, you're not as private as you think, and I think we just proved it. Take care.